Hello, everyone, and welcome to my live stream with Candice Oneida on the number one key to maintaining attraction, connection, and intimacy in relationships, whether you're single or in a relationship, or even if you've been with a man for years. This is really going to help you reconnect your relationship or attract that right man to you and maintain that passion and intimacy and connection throughout the course of your whole relationship. Candice is so amazing. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is Australia's #1 feminine success mentor who helps women feel empowered and successful in all areas of their life, their love life, and in their career and business, coming from your feminine energy, which is a whole new way to go about it for so many of us women who've been taught to kind of, go about things the masculine energy way. So this is going to be a super powerful conversation. I'm so excited to jump in. Candice, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So very grateful to be here, Helena, and I'm very, very grateful to be on your channel and to be collaborating with you on this important topic today. So it's very excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So for everybody watching, if you can let us know that you can hear us and see us okay. I see some people typing in the chat. That would be amazing. Sometimes I'm a little nervous at the start of these because it seems to be different every time. But if you guys can hear us, let us know. That would be fantastic. So in the meantime, we're just going to jump right in. Candice, let's start with like the struggles or some, common mistakes or maybe misconceptions you hear from women about this key that we're going to be talking about to maintaining attraction, connection, and intimacy.
Yeah, great. It's a really good start. My whole work, just to back up just a tiny bit with women, is about showing them how to basically feel powerfully feminine from the inside out. So one of the things that I see happen a lot, I'm sure you do too, is, women end up finding that they're not attracting either the kind of man that they want, or they find themselves in a relationship or in a dating scenario where they end up falling into patterns of conflict or needs not being met, or they find themselves very familiarly, my kind of women, they end up holding the masculine pole in the relationship. And that's not what they really want. It's not what they want at all. They actually want a really strong, powerfully true masculine man. And whilst they're actually holding the masculine pole or of the polarity in the relationship, it's never going to happen. So they're either attracting one of two things. They end up attracting the kind of man who is more in his feminine, right? Or they fall into what's called the false feminine, false masculine dynamics, which is just a world of misery for everybody. And so that's the main struggle I find that women come across. And I know this for myself because it's totally my story, that I was basically in what I call in my work man mode, okay? Stuck in man mode a lot. And that just basically means you've polarized so much more to the masculine. It's more familiar to you, and it's not to anybody's fault. It's literally how the world has trained us to be as women. And to conflate concepts like success and power and all those things with the masculine, and it's really just not true. And so we need to show women, actually re-teach them how to be in the feminine. The feminine is actually way more powerful than the masculine.
I could not agree with you more. I have so much to say on this topic, as most of my audience knows, and I know you are a total expert on this. Tiffany just said, "Oh my God, Candice is so good." And hello to everybody who's joining. Just so you know, every time I'm looking at my phone,
of course I get it. Yeah.
Comments, yeah. So Margaret, Fatima, Lauren, Britt, Sylvie, Amy, hello. Thank you guys so much for commenting, and any questions you have for Candice and myself around this topic. So we're just gonna, jump right in and say that polarity is the #1 key to maintaining attraction, connection, and intimacy and passion in your relationship. And what does that mean and how do you do it? So Candice, let's just start at the foundation here. Tell me a little bit about how you like to talk about some of these concepts. I know you mentioned the false masculine and the false feminine. I haven't heard it explained that way before, so I'd love to hear just everything you have to say on that.
Well, let's just speak more about just from the feminine, because I think we're mainly talking to women here today. One of the huge epiphanies I had, Helena, in my thing. So firstly, I ended up really burnt out in my early 40s. I was burnt out. I was exhausted. I was totally depleted. And of course, one of the ramifications of that was that I wasn't attracting the right kind of man ever at all, right? And so I was burned out, exhausted, overwhelmed because I had literally tortured my energy by being so masculine. And all it ended up doing was creating the wrong kind of dynamics in relationships, attracting the wrong kind of man, ending up in an emasculation dynamic with men. And I think a lot of the women who watch you too, you know, the women who work with me are super smart, they're savvy, they're successful women, right? They've achieved everything the world said should make you happy, should make you feel good about yourself, etc., etc. So one of the huge epiphanies I had, so I went to burnout and then I went into a long-term meditation. And the huge epiphany I had, one was, oh, wow, you know, all of that success I'd achieved had come from the masculine. And, you know, really, like, was this supposed to be the epiphany of my life, you know, the sort of the pinnacle, sorry, of my life? And I realized that I just couldn't do even the work, the success side of things from my masculine anymore. So I basically started this whole research on feminine power, and then also the application of a 20-year very serious spiritual practice that I hadn't really applied somehow into my life. Like I'd kept my spiritual practice somehow separate from other things. And I started to go, hang on, why? Why am I separating all of this feminine know-how from my massive spiritual training from my life, my work and my relationships? And then I don't know, you probably don't know this about me, Helena, but I've been a trained astrologer for over 20 years. And in my style of astrology, which is fairly unique, we have this concept with regard to what are called the planetary forces. And it's this concept of what's called the higher and the lower mode of every planet. So Venus, for example, has a lower mode and a higher mode. And so in my meditation retreat, I had this huge realization, like, okay, there's so much confusion out there about what the heck masculine and feminine even means, right? And I realized, oh, it's course there's a lower and a higher mode that people get caught into. Men get caught in the lower mode, women get caught in the lower mode. And so what I named it in my work is the false feminine and the true feminine, or the lower mode of the feminine and the higher mode of the feminine. And so I've created a whole model around the feminine archetypes, they're called. And there's two feminine archetypes in the lower mode, which is called the maid and the princess. They're fairly evocative terms, right? And the true feminine is the queen and the priestess. And so for all of us, when we're wanting to become feminine, we have to first see and recognize how we fall into the false feminine. And by the way, we all do, okay? We have triggers, we have all sorts of things that we believe have been feminine and they're not, or we have triggers that make us fall into that. So this is a model that I want you to see as something to be compassionate with for yourself and for others. But it then gives you a roadmap toward, what do you want? Oh, I want to become the queen. What is that like? What does it mean to be a queen? Like there's actually it's a world of difference between what's below this line in the false feminine and what's above it in the true feminine.
Amazing. I am so excited to dive into this. I talk about very similar concepts in a different terminology. I talk about the wounded masculine and feminine and the empowered masculine and feminine. Sounds very similar. I love the archetypes that you're talking about too. It sounds like everyone already knows about you and loves you. By the way, Moonlit says, I love watching Candice's videos. Fatima says, it's exhausting being in the masculine more than the feminine. Yeah, I agree with that because it goes against our nature as women, right? Which is receiving. Lauren says, oh my God, I just started watching Candice's videos recently. Anya's watching. Oh my gosh, so excited. Anya's the one that connected to us. So she's the reason why we're here. So thank you, Anya. She has some amazing archetypes as well. So I would love Anya and everyone to, I'd love to hear your input on all of these. This is phenomenal. Now, how does this relate to maintaining attraction and connection? Of course, I have my own ideas about this, but I'd love to hear from you, Candice. How does this relate to either attracting the right man or maintaining that connection and intimacy in a relationship?
You know, when we said the word polarity, so the thing is, in the false feminine, the false masculine, there may be polarity, but it's only in terms of a fighting and an antagonistic dynamic. So whenever I speak about polarity, I make very clear I'm not saying polarized, that we seek polarity in the masculine and the feminine because it creates a certain distinction. And I mean, people have heard of this concept of sexual tension, but it's actually really important. You see, there's attraction can only happen through polarity, right? So whether you're gay or straight, whatever, I'm totally, it's nothing about that. It's actually about a polarity being held. I remember when I was in high school, and I actually really loved biology. And I remember when the teacher showed me cell division. Do you remember? I don't know if you've been shown that in high school. And it was under the microscope live, and you'd watch cell division, right? So you'd have a sperm and an egg come together, and they'd do their thing, right? Their juju dance thing, and then they'd pull apart and they divide it into two cells. And so there's this thing where they get pulled apart, and then they come in reluctantly back together again. And then there's all this creative force. Like I could literally see life force being created in polarity, right? And then they'd pull away again. And so, look, there's a whole training, as you know, Helena, about we can't just constantly be in each other's face. We need to pull apart. We need to create space. We need to create polarity. But what's happened in our world, as you know so well, is there's been this denuding of the masculine and this denuding of the feminine. And that doesn't work for anybody. It's not what anybody wants. A truly masculine man wants a truly feminine woman in his life. A king wants a queen, and a queen wants a king.
It's so true. I love that example you gave too. I could just feel it in my body, even the polarity of the cells pulling apart and coming together. Yeah, that is the key to sexual attraction and intimacy, right? And I'm so glad we're talking about this too, by the way, because unfortunately there's a lot of misconceptions out there that being feminine means just being a doormat and letting a guy just come and go as he pleases and walk all over you. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. So when you hear some of these things, is that false feminine that you're talking about, that kind of doormat, damsel in distress kind of energy?
Well, what you're describing actually is the maid. You see, the damsel in distress would be the maid, and the doormat, the being pushed around, being not respected, being, not loved, not adored, not cherished, right? The princess, another of the false feminine, is more the drama, the fighting against, the pushing outwards, she constantly sees the world through the eyes of other people. So she doesn't have a sense of herself, a sense of her own body, her own sense of grounding. And then we move to the true feminine. And the queen is the really main one that I speak about, because I hold the priestess pretty high in terms of what it takes to become that kind of feminine. But for most of us, it's the queen. You stand in the queen, and the queen is super duper clear on who she is, on her value, on her boundaries, right? Boundaries are a good thing in relationships. And because she really has a strong sense of herself, she's got a very strong sense of what feels right to her. Like she's got a sense of, it's beyond intuition. Like she so knows her body emotionally, sexually, etc., that she knows what she wants. She's not afraid of asking for what she wants. And then she's actually able to be, in my work, I call it, when you learn to really be able to plug into yourself as a woman, you plug into your power source, then you fill up brightly, then you're really full, and then you can really give from there. So another aspect of the false feminine is this belief that so many women have, that they've got to give and do everything else for everybody else, their job, their kids, their husband, their family, their whatever else before them, and they're so depleted by the time they get to themselves on that to-do list that they never get taken care of. And it's exactly the reverse that I teach. You have to self-care first. You have to fill up first. And literally I show women how to get plugged into an unlimited font of power from which you can then give, like really give and serve, which actually is what women really want to be able to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, another common misconception I hear is that, women think that what men want is someone who's super giving and nurturing and takes care of his every need, and kind of this busybody, right? Like running around taking care of everything. And that couldn't be further from the truth. A true man in his masculine power wants a woman who can receive what he has to give. I mean, from my perspective, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And even that concept of service gets misconstrued, right? So one of the things we give most of all to the masculine is the ability to receive his masculine force, the receptive ability to receive the masculine. And yes, we can talk about it in practical dynamics, but it's an energetic dynamic at the end of the day, like the cell division image, right? So yes, we're not sitting on the couch eating bonbons, watching Netflix all day, and yet there's a learning to lean back, as in you create a receptive space into which the masculine can come, right? Come toward us, penetrate. The masculine wants to lead, to penetrate, to give, to provide, right? And so we become this receptive vessel for all of his beautiful, true masculine, a power and abilities there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad we're talking about all of this. When you were talking about that, this client of mine, I just had a session with the other day. Amazing. Gosh. So it's just sweet, wonderful woman. First time I worked with her was maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember exactly. She actually met her now husband right after our session. It was so amazing. She went Christmas shopping. It was right around this time of year. Went Christmas shopping after our session, met a super successful, high-powered, very masculine man, and they just got married in October, I believe it was. So she was feeling a little kind of insecure and not good enough because he was such a wealthy, high-powered CEO type of man, and she felt that that's what he wanted in a woman, right? Is that same kind of CEO-driven, ambitious energy. And what you're saying is what I told her is, men want their counterpart, not their carbon copy, right? They don't want someone to compete with when they're out, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. That speaks to polarity a lot, right?
Absolutely. I have this saying in the Powerfully Feminine work, which is, men have been these, powerful, successful men have often been at the office or on the phone, duking it out with dudes all day long, because that's what the masculine does. They're warriors, they're fighting, they're providing, they're pushing in, they're succeeding, right? And they do not want to come home to a dude at night.
Absolutely.
That's not what they seek. But they also don't want to come home to a mother. So, this mothering, smothering, it doesn't work either. So it's really a standing in the power of the feminine. Like, the reason why that woman and that man had that dynamic is she could stand in her queen. And a man like that wants to provide. He wants that polarity with a woman. And by the way, one thing I just want to make sure doesn't get past, like, men love smart women.
Oh yeah.
They love capable women. They love
independent women. Mm-hmm. Ask any man, they'll say, I love an independent woman. So it's about being successful, independent. Those are all fantastic things. I'm so glad you brought that up, by the way, because we don't want to say that, but within the relationship, it's the polarity that creates that connection and intimacy, right?
Yeah, and there's a transition. So, for example, if a woman were a CEO, for example, there'd be a learning to transition, you see? Because otherwise it ends up being two sort of masculine energies just duking it out, and it's just not going to be satisfying to most people. And I'm just saying, generally, men are going to want to be in the masculine polarity, women are going to want to be in the feminine polarity. Huge generalization, but the women that I work with are those that want to be more feminine. So I'm talking to them, really, and so are you. Yeah. So I'm not saying this is everybody, or this is a didactic statement that this is what all people have to be. But when you do want to be able to be feminine, you want to start to get this sort of, I call it soul flexibility, right? You want to have enough flexibility where you can go into the masculine at times and then be able to fluidly move back into the feminine, okay? So I talk about it as a spectrum. We want to be able to move along the spectrum at will, and that what's usually happening is women are stuck in the masculine part of the spectrum, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see that all the time. Yeah. And of course, we're not saying that you should never be in your masculine energy. I mean, your masculine energy is fantastic and very useful, and right. Do you have any tips for women? I love the way you talked about this fluid thing. It almost feels like a dance, but going back and forth. Do you have tips for women who seem to be stuck in that masculine? So I saw a comment in the chat about someone says they're stuck in their masculine a lot of times. How would you have a woman transition into her feminine?
Well, look, I think the main thing that I would pass there is you've got to watch for, when we're in our masculine, we end up a lot more sort of the directional. Even our body becomes a bit more straight and directional, and we're all going to be straight on things, and we're going to move around like this in the world, and we're going to be more strategic. Our words, our voice stream, which I call our voice flow, can become a bit more clipped. And so to transition into the feminine is all about the curves. Okay, the feminine body is something that the masculine just can't get enough of. Right? There's curves in our body that they just love. And that is evocative of the feminine, you see. And so to get into the feminine, we need to start to go into this more curvy relationship to the way we move our body and even the way we sort of fluidify the voice stream, right? So if you become conscious about how you use your voice, and I deliberately just changed my voice there, right? And there's a learning there where you can go from being a ball buster in the masculine, and then you can totally soften and fluidify your energy. Yeah.
Beautiful. I've actually never heard anyone give that explanation that way before. So that was fantastic. I did hear you mention maybe a few minutes ago that you help clients kind of plug into their feminine power so they can really activate this part of themselves. And that just kind of like piqued my interest. I'd love to hear any tips you have for women wanting to do that.
Well, I don't know if I can give tips because you see, that's a whole, you know this yourself, Helena, there's a certain amount of tips we can give here on YouTube. And then there's this needing to have a training, right? There's sometimes where if you've spent 20, 30, 40 years in the masculine, you're going to need a little bit of mentorship or coaching potentially to actually get back into this, right? And it's not going to be one little tip that's going to tip the balance. I often talk about the tipping point between masculine and feminine, okay? And you need to learn these things. So one of the things I teach, for example, are the 5 core feminine arts, yeah? And so in answer to your question, the art of power, which is the second art, okay, the first is the art of polarity, which we've been speaking about. The art of power has to do with our body and our energy. And I am remiss if I do not speak about this in terms of our sexuality, our sexual energy. The reason is people often don't realize that energy and life force and sexual energy are the same thing. And so if we're going to tap dance around and not talk about sex and sexuality, then you're totally missing the point about the feminine. It's something fairly, it's something that I make a stand for in my work with the feminine. So we have to get plugged in. We have to talk about our sexuality, our genitals. We have to be able to understand that there's a lot of power there and that's how we really plug into our energy source. And when you're actually feeling very comfortable in your body and comfortable in your sexuality, meaning not having sex, but just that you're a very sexual being. Women are very sexual. There's a huge misunderstanding about that, and that you can just be with that and you can sit with that comfortably. That's part of what's very attractive to anything, by the way, not just the masculine. It's attractive to the men, the masculine in men, but it's also attractive to life. It's attractive to situations. It's attractive to cash flow. It's attractive, see what I mean? So attractive, magnetic. So our sexual energy is an important part of it. So when I'm talking about plugging in, I mean plugging into our sexual energy.
I love that. Wow, that's amazing. I actually just finished recording a video with a friend of mine, Celine, like 5 minutes before we started this one on sexual energy and experiencing more pleasure, in your relationship, in and out of the bedroom. So it's amazing that you brought that up. Yeah, so true. I couldn't agree with you more. We have a couple good questions coming in. Ivy says she's a mom of 5 with a wonderful man. I'm very grateful for him as he takes care of all of us and always has everything under control. How do I set boundaries without hurting his feelings? And she said, it's hard to make time for myself. For peace of mind, I don't want to be completely apart. I just want freedom to be alone and do my own thing, even when we're at home together. I love boundaries are so important, obviously, right? When we're talking about some of these things. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I had exactly the same question come from a client of mine recently. So she's a mother of 3. She's a pretty high-end coach. And she goes, sometimes I just really need my alone time, my meditation time. How do I ask him without hurting his feelings, right? And, I think what happened with her was I said, look, and she was starting to get him involved in this concept of the masculine and feminine piece. And she'd say to him, honey, I just need to go and plug into my feminine a little bit more. I need my feminine time. And so it might take a bit of education with your partner to say, look, what that means is I need to meditate. I need to be alone a little bit. I might want to go and have a long bath. Would you be willing? And remember, with the masculine, if you ask him to provide for you, he's going to love that. Would you be willing to keep an eye on the kids for the next hour? Or, you know, can I just have my feminine time for the next hour? I'm going to come back way more engaged and way more available to all of you.
I love how you said that. The way you put that, I think a man would love that, right? Like I was feeling into it as like the partner here to be like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, because men like to have their alone time and their space as well. So
right.
Yeah, that was the perfect thing. I would have told her exactly the same thing. So that's fantastic. Let's talk a little more about this polarity and how it maintains attraction, connection, and intimacy. One question I get all the time from women is that, you know, a man came on strong at the beginning, or the relationship started off really hot and heavy, and then things start to get a little distant, or it becomes kind of stagnant or boring or routine. What would you have a woman do who's in that situation?
Well, essentially the question is, how do you bring polarity back into the relationship? Because some of the things you described sound to me, even theoretically, like polarity's been lost.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For example, if a woman has like an anxious attachment style, and that's not the conversation we're having today, but if she does, and a man withdraws a little bit or he needs his own time, if she starts to lead, she's going into the masculine. And it's just going to denude the polarity in the relationship and have the opposite effect of what she thinks, right? This is not about games. This is about understanding dynamics in relationships. So that doesn't work, right? So especially if a person has an anxious type of attachment style, if they start to lead, if they start to, and I'm not talking about not asking for your needs. Your needs is a different conversation, but if you lead or push or prod or demand, and demands are very, very different than requests, by the way, and demands are very, very different than needs, but that's not going to work, okay? You see, there's a whole learning of a language around talking to the masculine. So we end up talking, we're talking to the hero in a man, you know. So the men really want to provide. They want to be the hero for us. But we have to learn to find a way to ask for our needs through the language of propping him up as a hero, right? The other thing that wouldn't be working is if the nagging energy starts to come in, where, again, it's really demanding. Nagging is another type of demand. None of these things are going to work. Nobody's needs are getting met. Everybody's falling into the false feminine and the false masculine, okay? So in short, in recognizing this difference between, as you call it, the wounded feminine and the empowered feminine, or the false feminine and the true feminine, there has to be some sort of internal trigger like, okay, I'm behaving, I'm in the princess right now, and this isn't going to work for him. And so sometimes creating some space. I think I'm going to need some space to try to find myself again, try to, bring myself into my own pleasure, understand my own desire, so that I can speak my needs clearly and cleanly, right? So there's a way to ask for your needs that empowers the masculine. Like, totally, this is one thing that you probably know this, women just don't get at first. Men love us asking for our needs to be met. My partner constantly says he's never met a woman who knows what she wants so much and constantly asks for it, right? And he loves it. You got to understand, they love it. And it's the way you do it, you see, and there is a bit of a training about the languaging and understanding polarity there for that to work.
Oh yeah, I mean, to give a man almost like a cheat sheet or something, and to like, here's what would make me happy and make me feel good. Oh, men are thrilled for that, right? I call it making requests from your feminine energy. Would be the opposite of nagging. I talk about that in my ebook. What would just a quick example be? How could a woman ask for her need? Ask a man to meet her needs in a way that would inspire him to step into his masculine and want to do that?
The word to use here is provide. So you have a need, you identify a need. So let's just say I've discovered, so I don't want to cook tonight. and I want my partner to take me out. So this is a scenario, right? So rather than going, I don't want to cook tonight, take me out, which is a bit harsh and overly direct, we go, honey, you know, I've been working so hard, and I know you've been working so hard, and you know what would really provide this, you know, need to be taken care of right now is if you took me out to dinner tonight. The word provide is such a powerful word for the masculine. And then you say, would you be willing to take me to that little sushi place that we both love? I mean, you're giving him options. You're not demanding. You're saying, would you be willing? And give him a chance to. What happens with the man is when we ask something of him, he literally immediately goes, can I or can I not provide that for her? That's they're much simpler. They've got this on-off kind of, can I or can I not provide that for her? And if he goes, yes, he's going to tell you immediately, or he'll say, I can't right now, but I will be able to in blah, 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 right? So when you use the provide word, it would provide me. And then you see, the thing is, you need to be able to identify what it will provide you. It will really make me feel taken care of, provide me that sense of being taken care of. I've been working so hard this week. Nope. They just puff their chests out and they go, oh, I would love to do that for you. That's a great idea, right? And then you let him provide that for you. Then you let him let him lead the rest of the evening, right?
I love that. I love that. Everyone write down that word provide. I'm like, that is so brilliant. I've never heard anyone say it like that, but yeah, absolutely. Men they have this instinct, protectors and providers. They're natural. And right. And so many of them probably feel inadequate or ineffectual, maybe in some other area of their life. So if you can make him feel like your hero and he can provide for you and meet your needs, even in these little ways.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then at the end of the evening, you'd wrap it up and say, honey, thank you so much for taking us out tonight. That really provided for me, fill in the blank, right? I really felt taken care of. I'm so, so grateful for you, and you're so generous, you know? And this is not pandering, you know? I think at first it might feel unnatural, but that's because we've lost it, you know? This is why I talk about feminine re-emergence, because the thing is, in every woman is this know-how. It's just that it's so buried, they don't know where it is, right? So they need a bit of help and guidance for it to blossom again.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's that acknowledgement and appreciation that I talk about in so many of my videos as kind of the fuel that the masculine energy partner runs on, right? Men want to know that they can make you happy, make you feel good, and meet your needs if he's truly a good partner to you, right? Yeah. So this is phenomenal, Candice. I'm loving this so much. Lauren asked a great question. She says, if my boyfriend wants me to travel to him more often because of his busy schedule, is that pushing me into my masculine? I have to either drive 4 hours or book a flight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one, Candice.
I think it depends on the situation. You see, there can be a slip, you know, it's like it can be okay, but if it gets too much where she's being asked to go toward him, it starts to be him asking her to do all the work. You need to let the masculine do the work. And it might be, great, honey, just let me know when you purchase the ticket, and let me know, when I'll be arriving and where we're staying. That sounds fun.
Oh, beautiful. I love
it. So
let
him provide for you. Let him buy the ticket and go, great. Let me know when you've got the ticket. Just email it to me.
Amazing. Yeah. I was going to say, you'll feel it. You'll start to feel it. Like, if I always say that anger and resentment build in direct proportion to the amount of effort and energy you're putting out as the feminine energy partner, right? So if you start to feel resentful, you can always take a look. Where am I putting in too much effort and not getting it back in return? That's a clue that you're kind of stepping into that masculine energy territory, especially if you're not, if you're hoping something will happen and it doesn't happen. You don't want as dangerous territory, right? You don't want to slide into that place. So your feelings, use your feelings as your guide, right? If it starts to feel like I'm the one putting in all the effort here, we all know what that feels like, right? It doesn't feel good to us.
It doesn't feel right. And then polarity is going off. It's going out, and it needs to be re-established. Yeah.
Great. Oh my gosh, I'm like loving this so much, Candice. Thank you guys for all your questions. I saw one other one from Britt. She says, how do you combat limiting beliefs about worthiness for marriage or for a loyal man. Do you have anything on worthiness and limiting beliefs, Candice? I'm not sure.
Again, I'm not. The question's fairly narrow there. Sorry, the question's quite broad there, and I'm not entirely sure what she's referring to. But you know, if you have wounded beliefs around yourself as a person, this is even beyond masculine, feminine, then you might need some therapeutic help to reestablish a sense of groundedness and self-worth and that kind of thing. And then there's also, for so many of us, we have wounds to both the masculine and the feminine that create beliefs around what we expect. And so some wound work on those pieces, either your own sort of personal relationship to yourself, or it may be the wound to the masculine or the feminine, which often happens through family dynamics or past relationship situations. So those things probably need to be addressed first. Like you need to do a bit of a wound cleansing before you're going to be able to really stand up in your true feminine.
Beautiful. I just wanted to hear your perspective on that, if that's something you talk about. I really like that. I just posted a video, I believe like a day or two ago, on how to change your beliefs to attract the love and man and relationship you want. If you want to like hear my perspective, I go kind of in depth on that one. I see one last question here, and that's from Maria. She says, I'm feeling heartache because the man I'm involved with has a tendency to shut down and pull away when he's having an issue, be it with me or someone else, instead of talking to me about it. I'm not sure what to do. Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time. You know, men get flooded with strong emotions, or they're stressed out, and their tendency is to withdraw and pull away. Candice, I would love to hear your expertise on this topic. And it does relate to polarity a little bit too, right?
Well, it does, of course, because, you know, sometimes, you know, depending on the man, of course, that he's withdrawing because he doesn't want to go into the feminine and fight you and get all histrionic, right? So if a man starts to fight and get dramatic, he's gone into the feminine, frankly. And so if he's actually a truly masculine man, sometimes they want to withdraw to collect themselves, to get back into their masculine. They'll often go to the gym, or they do their own version of their testosterone activities to get their sense of themselves back, their own self-worth. So sometimes we need to give them the space in which to do that. If you've been in a longer term relationship, you start to know someone's patterns, and then you can just ask them, honey, do you need some space and time right now? Or he should be able to say, I need some time and space just to digest this at the moment. Okay. And sometimes they'll want to do that before something ends up in a fight, because they want to be able to actually not fight you. They want to be level, and they want to be respectful, etc., etc. What was the other part of the question?
See, she just said he has a tendency to shut down and pull away. She's just like would like to know what to do.
Well, he might be an avoidant attachment style too. Okay, so if he has an avoidant attachment style, that's going to keep happening, and it sounds like this woman has an anxious attachment style. And so the anxious avoidant attachment styles are constantly doing this thing, and it's very, very painful to both of them. It can change, but both of the partners need to do transformation work before, and learn really good communication skills so that they can respect each other's needs in that dynamic.
I love that. Yeah. So it's hard to give advice without knowing like the specifics of the situation.
Need a few more details.
Especially for like, you know, the thousands of people that are going to end up watching this. But yeah, I love everything you said. That was great. Okay, one more question, then we'll talk about your free gift that you have for everyone and any of the kind of last words of wisdom you'd like to share. Someone asks, let's see, expectations are the worst if they don't get fulfilled. I find I have to express needs in a positive way with options. Options are the key. I think she's asked. What would you have someone give options to a man when they're expressing their needs? Doesn't sound like it.
Two things on what that woman asked. One, I do a whole lot of work. The third art of feminine power is actually the art of desire. Okay, so understanding desire as a woman is so fundamental to us. And in order to get into what our real desires are, not our conditioned or, socioeconomically applied desires, like our desire, first we often have to go through a process of looking at what I call negative desires, okay? So she referred to something around the things that she doesn't want. Like you actually have to go through a process of deconditioning what you don't want before you're ever going to find what you do want. Men actually like things to be very simple and direct. They don't want you to give them 50 options. That is just like, they're just going to go numb. They're not going to know what to do. The reason why I hear you saying that you want options is you're not clear on what you want. Okay, so if you are clear on what you want, you see, I always say there's so much you can say with a smile on your face. You see, and when you're okay with your desire and you don't feel anxious about asking for it, you say, honey, would you be willing to do X? It would really make me feel da-da, or it would provide me a sense of safety or feeling taken care of, or whatever it is that you're saying to them. One thing, keep it simple, stupid, KISS principle. And it's not that men are stupid. It's not that at all. They love clarity. They just want to know what the heck you want, right? So tell them what you want. And that's one thing, not 5. Make sense?
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, they really appreciate very direct, straightforward communication, right? Okay, one last question, amazing one that came through. I'm attracted to a high-powered masculine energy man. He, however, doesn't pursue me effectively. I'm in my feminine energy and not pursuing him. Is that what you'd recommend? Perfect for this topic of polarity, right? So what would you say to a woman where the man she wants is not pursuing her effectively? What would you have her do?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of difference between just sitting on the couch like a piece of salami waiting for someone to text you or call you, right? And you being the kind of vibrant, vivacious woman he wants to be with. Go and live your life. You don't wait for this person. If he's not leaning in, there's a couple of things going on. Okay, I can only posit this with a tiny question like that. He's got something else that's happening that he needs to sort out before he can focus on you, either punctually or more broadly. Or, I'm sorry, he's just not into you. Men will let you know if they're into you. And that's something we just have to get and just move on. Like, trust me, if you're turning up as a queen, kings will notice that. They will notice you and they will want you and they will make damn sure nobody else is going to get you.
It's so true. It's so, I mean, this is the kind of stuff I talk about all the time, right? So yeah, it can be really difficult though when you're in the situation.
It's really anxiety provoking. I know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this has been phenomenal. Candice, let's talk about your free gift. Candice has an amazing free feminine archetype quiz. I so wanted to take this quiz, but I was before, so I could tell you what kind of archetype I was so we could talk about it. But
I can already tell you. You don't need to. You don't need to take it. I can tell as soon as a woman walks in the room which archetype she's wearing most of the time.
Oh, amazing! Oh, which one would you say I am?
Oh, Helena, my dear. Of course, you're in the true feminine.
Oh, thank you so much.
I seat in the queen, and you've got a lot of the priestess too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I still want to take it because I'm very interested in how this all works. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm literally back to back today, so I really wanted to take it, but I'll take it and we can talk about that next time. I'd love to have you on again. Tell everyone about this quiz, and also Candice has an amazing YouTube channel. All these links are right in this description, everyone, so you can go check that out right now, and your Facebook group as well. So tell everyone about some of those things.
Well, the main thing is just I want to offer you the feminine desire archetypes quiz, because it basically gives you a snapshot just in 12 really simple questions of what your dominant archetype is right now. So I often get women to take it over time, especially after they've trained with me, and it changes, right? So, and then there's a whole bunch of information I give you about the 4 archetypes. So it's an opportunity to take the quiz. It will show you your dominant archetype, and then I'll send you some emails so that you can actually study and learn about the other 4 too, or the other 3 too.
Yeah. Amazing. Everyone, please go check that out. I'm totally going to do it because I'm very interested in this archetype thing. Ever since I started spending time with Anya and working with her, she has this whole archetype, and it's so powerful. And it really, like, just that the images that it evokes, it just kind of really gets into your subconscious, and you can feel where you might want to make some shifts. So that is amazing. Definitely. Right? Yeah. Please go check out Candice's YouTube channel too. And I hear so many amazing things about all your videos. It sounds like most people here have seen some of them too, and your Facebook group as well. Any last words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave everyone with when it comes to this key to maintaining attraction, connection, and intimacy in relationships?
Well, I think the last words of wisdom I would have is one of the biggest lessons I had with regard to understanding true feminine power is, I think, because if we've come from this background of being in man mode or being a lone wolf, which often kind of go hand in hand over here, is that we're not supposed to work it out on our own, like whether it's through sisterhood or coaching or mentorship. These are the things that became the bar raisers for me. Like, women actually in their true feminine love being together. They support each other. There's no conflict. There's no competition. There's only collaboration and support. And so Helena offers that in her work. I offer that in my work, communities in which you can discover yourself, share with other women. That's there for you. So you're not supposed to do it on your own, is my last words of wisdom. So let yourself be supported and helped in your own feminine reemergence.
Oh, I love that. It's so in line with everything that we just talked about. So that is amazing. And it sounds like everything you said resonated so much. I don't know if you were able to see the live chat, but I can't wait for you.
My phone's on the other side of the house.
It's better that way sometimes because it can get distracting. But yeah, I can't wait for you to read all these amazing comments. This was phenomenal, Candice. Thank you so much. Everyone, please go check out her free gift and her channel and everything. It's just in the description right below this video. Thank you so much again. I really hope we can do this soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Helena. Beautiful.